What's up, guys? It's T and Christina. We just watched Ptich Perfect 2. I'm having a really hard time saying that, but that's like the third time, so we're using this one. We've both seen Ptich Perfect 1, so we're both pretty familiar. It's not too hard to understand or figure out what's going on in these movies. In terms of what we thought about Ptich Perfect 1, loved it, thought it was fine.
Also, I think that might be about the same spectrum that we are judging Ptich Perfect 2 on. Really liked it, thought it was meh.
Fine to bad, actually, for this one. So it went south for me, actually, on Ptich Perfect 2. The second movie is almost identical to the first one instead of improving upon it, particularly in terms of story structure. The actual story structure of Ptich Perfect 2 is pretty much identical to the beats that we see that progress the story in the first movie.
I didn't mind that very much because I was mostly just afraid I was going to go in with such high expectations that I was going to be disappointed. So the fact that the story structure was more or less the same meant that at least it had the same level of depth as the first movie. And it did. Becca learns a lesson, and the Bellas learn to sing together.
Yeah, I guess she learns. Does she learn a lesson? I don't know. I feel like it's kind of like nothing has really changed by the end of the movie. And particularly the movie was far longer than it needed to be, in my opinion. I think there were a lot of, you know, storylines that didn't need to be addressed. I think for one, they're sort of carrying on with that bumper Fat Amy love story / hookup situation that was planted in the first film. And that actually takes on a whole life of its own in this movie. And I think way too much screen time is given to it. It really just seemed like Rebel Wilson and Adam Devine are both a lot more famous now, so let's crowbar in more screen time for them, even though it doesn't really help the story at all.
On the other hand, the movie almost always won me back immediately with the next scene, so...
She means the next song. So the first movie, I recognized going in that it was not going to be for me. I am not the target audience. I really just want to watch True Lies most of the time. But I still was able to objectively understand that the movie was fine. And this time around, I feel like the writing, even though it's the same writer, by the way, was much worse. The directing, it's Elizabeth Banks' directorial debut. I thought it was very clumsy. There were a lot of scenes that felt like they clumsily cut them short in post, and they just didn't really know how to get out of it. I feel like there were a lot of weird moments, or actually a lack of moments, between Skylar Astin and Becca. You know, like, they're together now after the first movie, and I think they have maybe 2 scenes together, which was just bizarre. But overall, I would say that this movie, instead of being fine for its target audience, is actually actively bad, in my opinion.
I don't necessarily agree with the actively bad assessment. I think that the first movie was way better than it had any right to be, given the subject matter. I do agree that it is about 10 to 15% worse than the first movie, but since I would give the first movie like a shockingly high 95 out of 100, this one's just like a solid B plus A-, so, you know.
So still pretty good.
Still pretty good.
One thing I did like, though, was that Keegan-Michael Key is in the movie. He plays a record producer for whom Becca is an intern, and he's hilarious. He is really funny. One thing that I didn't find super funny, honestly, was just how a lot of the characters were just far too similar in the sort of jokes and punchlines they were giving. Everyone is so over the top, ridiculous, misogynist, racist, completely out of touch with what's appropriate to say in public. So there was no ebb and flow to the comedy, in my opinion. It was just like everyone was just equally retarded.
There were some musical sequences that I think I'm going to buy the Blu-ray and watch over and over and over again. Maybe I'll learn the parts that I'm going to skip through on the 5th viewing, but I can tell you which ones I will have seen about 100 times.
Well, that's what we thought. Let us know in the comments if you guys are going to see it, or if you're watching this after you've already seen it, let us know what you thought, if you liked it more than the first one, or less, or about the same. And be sure to subscribe to CineFix for more reviews and other things that we do.
Yeah, tell us in the comments which one of us is right.